Welcome everybody to the business of your mind show. It has been a very eventful last 2 weeks. I know y'all missed me. I know I missed y'all too. I love y'all. But my guest on today's show is going to bring us some phenomenal information. He's a good friend of mine. Before I bring him on, I just want to see how everybody's doing. We're living in a very interesting time right now, and I feel like the subject matter that we're going to be talking about today is something that a lot of people talk about toxic people without realizing that sometimes you are that toxic person. Can I get an amen? So the purpose of tonight's show is to help you identify whether you are that person, whether you're dealing with that person, whether you're enabling that person to continue to be toxic. Because if you know anything about toxic waste and toxic people, they will infect you regardless of whether you think that you're strong enough or not. So without further ado, I want to introduce this young gray sweatpants wearing individual, good friend of mine's, Dr. Manny. Dr. Manny St. Victor's brain slapping style of research attracts clients from around the world to actively discover how their minds work and how to think their way to success. A true polymath, he's brought much needed science to the fuzzy world of self-improvement, and he's equally at ease with everyone from billionaires to Tibetan throat singers. I got something to say about that, man, but we'll talk about that in a minute. 3 years into his psychiatry residency, Dr. Manny St. Vincent quit medicine for the third time to pursue his dreams. This time it was to build virtual worlds with a startup story, with a startup, but underneath it all was an emerging story. He was looking for a deeper, more meaningful way of being in alignment with his evolving creative passions. Software development led to entrepreneurship, which led him to find his purpose, guiding others to awakening their true potential. Founder of Precision Mindset and best-selling author of Thinking About Quitting Medicine, Dr. Manny has the heart to reach those who are seeking to be unstuck from success roadblocks and to heal the effects of past traumatic events that at times trigger present realities. His method is through the effective method of hypnotherapy because he believes healing wounds changes the way reality looks and feels. Without further ado, I want to introduce the genius, the man, the myth, the legend, the gray sweatpants wearing sexy mother shut your mouth, Dr. Manny St. Victor.
Ja, what's up, fam?
What's going on, my brother?
Yeah, well, let's get it.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
man.
I'm ready. Thank you for having me on the show. Let's chop
Man,
it up. I'm ready.
I'm glad we can we could have you on the show, man. What you think about this topic, brother?
I think it's a fundamental topic because we're all looking for relationships, and over we keep running into people who are looking for people looking for relationships, but not with the intention of providing them with their relationship. Instead, with the intention of draining them, derailing them, misleading them, exploiting them. And a lot of times I say, if at first you don't succeed, try again. But until we get to where we can recognize toxic people, each attempt to get love ends up being another experience of getting more deeply wounded and bringing up old trauma. And so to me, getting an understanding of toxic people is an opportunity to get an understanding of yourself and to get an understanding of why you keep doing the things to yourself that you do.
To the business of your mind. Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah, so what do you feel Um, what experiences in life are most profound as it relates to uh, people being toxic? Do you think it's something that people are just born toxic? You think it's, something dealing with the family? Could it be upbringing? Like, what do you find when you're dealing with people is the number one source of people having a toxic personality?
Developmental trauma.
Mm,
Basically, it begins with we're creatures that run on love, like
mm,
unconditional love. If we grow up in environments where that love is connected to either your behavior or academic performance, or you happen to have the misfortune of being born into a place where people are emotionally unavailable,
mm,
then as you're growing up, these needs will come up: a need to be validated, a need to be loved and appreciated when you're failing, when you're worse, a need to rest and just be yourself. If all these needs are not met along the way, you come to, or if you have some trauma, you come to believe that you're not worth loving unconditionally.
mm.
And as such, then you become either a performer or you become someone who beats up on others as they perform, a pessimist, a critic, or you become a perpetual victim where you just feel as if no matter how much you try, you can never get it without other people, and so you become codependent.
Mm.
So all these different ways of being keep us from actually being fully alive, being fully connected to our truth, and reaching our potential because we can't collaborate.
Right.
Yeah,
Huh. So why do you think that so many people? The one thing I've never heard is somebody call themselves toxic.
yeah,
Everybody can identify toxic people, quote unquote, but nobody ever thinks they're the toxic person. And in order for there to be toxic people, somebody has to be toxic, right? So
yep.
is there anything that when you're meeting with a client and they're maybe we all know that perception is projection a lot of times.
Yeah,
When you're constantly saying so and so is toxic, so and so is toxic, that is
yes,
you're the
yeah, yeah. No,
you're,
that's a
you're the
very
problem.
important point because yeah, we spend a large part of our lives running away from ourselves while attracting people that continue to punish us for being our old selves.
Mm,
And then we blame those people for staying stuck there, but yet we continue to create these relationship patterns. We gravitate towards people who remind us of people who have wounded us before in an attempt to close those loops.
right,
So, one of the ways to realize the aspects of you that are toxic is to look at the people you attract and the relationships which you have with them. Often, if you have someone, and there's three main ways to know if you're toxic, to see yourself, three toxic roles. There is the role of being the victim, there's the role of being a rescuer, and there's the role of being a persecutor, a critic, blamer type of person. So when we see ourselves in these positions, instead of helping someone either grow or become their best self, then it's time to ask ourselves, why is it that we continue to attract these type of people? Which role are we addicted to playing?
right.
Someone who is addicted to always being the victim is going to attract people who always want to rescue them, and they're going to attract people who always get sick and tired of someone playing the victim. So they're going to attract their own villain, their own persecutor, and they're going to attract their own overly nourishing, suffocating enabler
Mm,
based on the demons they carry around in their energy.
mm. Man, that is some deep stuff, brother. Um, so you and I have had discussions, right? We have talked about one of the things that connects us is that we identified, certain things maybe in our own upbringing. My mother passed in 18, and really how you and I connected was that I came to see you.
Yeah. Yep.
Came to see you like, hey man, I'm over here crying about my mama, but my mama done messed me up too, man.
Yeah.
She ain't here no more.
Yeah.
But I need to get past some of this stuff. Can you go a little bit deeper into the impact that parents have on their children. And I don't believe that my mom, your mom, or any, but I know a lot of males, a lot of men that are running around here with mama trauma, with a mama trauma is what I'm
Yeah.
calling it, mama trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I believe it's inadvertent. For instance, with my mom, I know that she was projecting the image of my dad onto me.
Yeah.
So because I was a constant reminder of that she had laid with a man that had basically left her, or whatever the situation was, I was the one getting beat up by it.
Yeah.
So, with that being the case, what what do you do in that circumstance if you are either a parent that's currently doing it, because we tend to perpetuate what we grew up learning,
Yeah.
what we grew up seeing, we think that is right, we think that is normal. You grew up saying, I have got some friends that grew up in abusive relationships, seeing their mom, dad fight, they thought it was okay, so now they fighting.
Yep.
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Grew up seeing their parents slanging, so now they or whatever.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
what can you do as a parent if you see yourself inadvertent? I keep using the word inadvertent because I don't think anybody consciously wants to be toxic. At least I hope not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are just talking about the whole parent-child thing?
Yeah.
Like, what advice? How do you address that?
Yeah.
What do you do in that case if you know that, man, I'm acting like my mama? Because you hear it all the
Yeah.
time, man.
Yeah.
Man, like my mom used to do that,
Yeah.
daddy
Yeah.
or whoever, toxic.
Yeah.
So before I get attacked on social media, they're toxic dads and moms. Let me
Yeah.
make sure I
Absolutely.
say that.
Yeah.
I just did not grow up with my dad, so my point of reference is a toxic mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well.
so. Let me make sure I say that. Anybody listening to this, downloading or whatever, like, I'm not attacking women. I love women.
Yeah.
I love them to death.
Yeah.
But that's just my point of reference. This
Yeah.
is about toxic people, toxic parents. What do you do
Yeah.
if you
Well,
are the victim of that?
you gotta come to your truth is the first step. And the way to often come to your truth is to see and feel the way your current relationships are looking.
Mm.
Your relationship with your kids are most important because it's a captive audience. They can't go anywhere. They can't leave you. So if you find yourself in a relationship with your kids where you're constantly pressing them up against the wall, telling them to leave, threatening to kick them out the house, etc., whatever, then you want to ask yourself, where did you learn that? Where did you learn this pattern of relating to someone who couldn't leave?
Mm.
And then you want to look at your prior relationships, and you want to look at some of your initial relationships. How did your mom and dad treat each other around you? How did they show affection? How did they argue? Did they argue in front of you, or did they passive aggressive each other? Because you think about all the things that we come from a generation where parents did so much in private that we got a limited view of what parenting was really about.
Mm.
With me, as far as I knew, parenting was coming home tired as hell and going out with the fellas, discipline, strict discipline, checking my homework. For me, my mother was also coming home tired, feeling guilty, trying hard but not connecting. So when my parents had it hard, my parents came from Haiti, and so they got by. They had the immigrant mindset. But when I eventually got to the point of success, I realized that I continued to carry their voices with me, where everything from just anytime I would get stuck as I was reaching higher levels, I would immediately devalue that level and just not feel good enough. I had this chronic imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to ask myself, where did it come from? All the issues and demons that I have now, where did I get them? What did I do to grow them? And why is it that some of them are so deeply embedded in me? And then I decided, okay, well, let me look at my relationship every day with my kids. How do I act when I'm not paying attention to how I'm acting? Certain things like just a lot of times one of the things I noticed was coming home and just being super tired. Just feeling the need to chronically just be tired and acting like my kids were an annoyance to me, just because I guess this is the script I assume went between dad and the kids. I'm so busy working so hard to make ends meet, that that I'm too tired to play with y'all, you know. And the irony and sadness of that is I'm not, because I'm an entrepreneur. I've set up my business where I have time,
Right.
yet I still do the scripts. There are certain times, like with my daughter, where I realize that I'm cutting her off and not hearing her, because I came up with the in the generation of kids should be seen barely and not heard.
Right. When
All those things. Yeah, yeah. A good guide is anytime you find yourself feeling like you're stuck in a groove and you don't feel good doing it. Anytime you talk to your kid in a way that afterwards you're sitting in the room feeling like you gotta go apologize, but adults don't do that thing. You're being toxic because you owe someone an apology. You violated someone's boundaries. Anytime you walk away after you realize in the middle of the discussion the child was right and you continue to plow through them, that's old parental conditioning. With me in my home, one of the things is my daughter is increasingly identifying as male. She's 5 and she's starting to do that. So a lot of the times I find myself shutting it down because I come from like I have my parental conditioning, that ignore that, it'll pass. But really, I know that a lot of times my parents, the things that they ignored did not pass. They became things about myself that I felt that they ignored because they were too disgusting to be valued.
Right.
So what am I passing on by doing those scripts in autopilot? So that's to the question of parental impact. Just look at how you feel when you're interacting with your kids. And the times that you don't feel good, ask yourself, why are you doing that behavior anyway? And what wound in you needs to be healed so that you don't feel the need to propagate it.
You hit on a couple of things I wanna touch on.
I touch.
One of them is the imposter syndrome. I think, I don't know if it's an all male or a black male thing, but growing up, my mom made me feel bad about being smart, intelligent, and confident. She made me feel like when I was confident about or happy about something that I had done, that I was being arrogant. I'm like, nah, like if I'm an A student in math, I'm an A student in math. If Michael Jordan is the best athlete, he should be able to say, I am the best. That is not arrogance. That is confidence, especially if you can back it up. So she ended up speaking to a psychiatrist, a psychologist it was a professor at Emory that was a friend of hers. And she was like, nah, your son does not have, he's not arrogant. He's just extremely confident. Yeah. There is a difference. An arrogant person, walks around thinking that they're better than other people. Your son is just confident in his abilities. Yeah. That's confidence. That's healthy. So with that, as I started to write these books and, and get these accolades and stuff, and like, it was hard. Like, it was almost like I would self-sabotage myself, start working as hard. Like, wait a minute, hold on, the train going too fast. Yeah. I ain't supposed to be here. My mama said I'd be nothing but a garbage man. Yep. She did say, by the way. But, when that script is embedded in you, and now that I've done some NLP stuff and stuff like that, and I try to kind of understand it. Like, man, like, I get it. Yeah. We programmed from way before we had any control. Like 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? It could be 1. Yep. your first instance of anger, hate, whatever. You don't remember it. Yep. But that's what molds you to this adult human being that you are, which is why certain things will trigger you to act like a 2-year-old.
Yep. And can't help yourself.
Right. And then I want to touch on too. So I want to dig deeper in imposter syndrome, because I think that's going to help a lot of people. 2, this past weekend, normally when I play with my son, I stay in adult mode. whether it's basketball or whatever, I stay in adult mode. I don't go to his 4-year-old level and start seeing zombies and vampires and stuff. Well, this past weekend, I said, Dad, what's wrong with you? So we got in the backyard. We was out there fighting 100-foot tall skeletons and zombies, and know, and I empowered him because I was like, that's something that my mother never did to me. She never came down to my level as a child and just played with me. Now, did I look crazy outside, flailing my hands and killing these mysterious werewolves and stuff that were attacking us in my backyard? Yes, I made it, y'all. I made it, y'all. See, I made it.
Not to the person who matters.
Right. But it felt good, man, because I was actually deprived of my childhood because I was always told I was the man of the house. Yeah. So it's like I don't remember being that free. Like my son is free. Like he saw everything in the backyard. He went from that to becoming a delivery driver. He had his little power wheel and was driving around, with and bringing pizzas and and medicine to me. He went from being an Uber driver to being an MD. Yeah. It was crazy, but like I just got in his world, and like it was so liberating for me as a man, because I think men, a lot of times, like we are so guarded, man, and we want to always keep this macho image, but it's like that's toxic in itself.
It is.
That's toxic masculinity. So it's like when you're dealing with that, it makes it, when you take that mask off, and I feel like we should not have masks on with our children.
Yeah.
Our children and our spouses should see us naked. Now, I'm not saying that literally. I ain't saying your 10-year-old son or daughter need to see you naked. That ain't what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they need to see you be a human being.
Yep.
So that they can know how to process emotions and how to navigate the world. Because if they don't ever see you stress, if they don't ever see you go through the different human emotions, and especially with men, if they don't ever see you cry, like I'm writing this book that I want to talk to you about too, Doctor, called Undead Beat Your Son, which is dealing with all of that toxic stuff that are in men, but back to this conversation, the imposter syndrome, how do you navigate that? And I see somebody in the chat put absolute mask off. Absolutely, Valerie. Mask off at all times, because when you're dealing with, whether you think you're an overachiever, and I actually hate the word overachiever. I'm like, I don't like it, because it makes it sound like you're doing something wrong. Like, how do you overachieve? No, like I'm just maxing my life out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But overachiever makes it sound like an imposter. You know what I'm saying? Like it has an imposter to me anyway. It just sounds, it doesn't sound like a positive thing. He's a consummate overachiever. Like, okay, man, no, I'm just out here doing, I ain't nowhere near where I want to be. Like, you might think this cool, but that whole imposter syndrome, how do you help people identify that and get past it? Because I know when you mentioned it earlier, when you go through certain levels, especially when you're making money and just going through different levels of society, a lot of these cliches are real. It's lonely at the top, like, because the higher you go, it just simple mathematics. The higher you go, the fewer people are that are in your economic bracket or that are as successful as you. So there's fewer people for you to connect to, yada, yada, yada. So how do you help people navigate that, or how have you navigated that within your own life? And how do people identify where they're stuck? And basically get past being that imposter?
Yep. I think the key to overcoming imposter syndrome is authenticity. And authenticity begins with observing yourself without judgment, basically with self-acceptance, which creates the room for self-love. Now, the reason I say that is that imposter syndrome as an experience is when you're walking around and from moment to moment, you're not able to believe in yourself, either because you're hearing voices in your head at different moments that are telling you you're not as good as other people are saying you are, So that comes up all the time, automatically activating this self-doubt. It may be that you feel that people can read your thoughts, or if they knew what you had done in the past, that they wouldn't appreciate you as much. Now, when you combine that with a certain amount of perfectionism, if you came from an environment where people were always picking at your mistakes, you're always there observing your mistakes, and your inner critic acting as a role of either a former critical teacher, critical mentor, critical parent is in your head the whole time criticizing you. Every single mistake you make. Now when you're out in the field, you've come a long way from all these mistakes, but if you've conditioned yourself where for week after week all you've heard is you say to yourself, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're procrastinating, whatever it is that you've been saying over and over, when you actually get to the competing field and you go looking for quiet, what's going to happen is what's going to come up is the voice of that inner critic. And in that moment, every time you hear an accolade, you're immediately going to hear something in the opposite. Now, one of the things I have my clients do often is a simple exercise. I call it mirror talk. It's 5 minutes of saying I love you in the mirror. Now, it's one thing to say affirmations, but it's challenging to believe affirmations if every time you say them, your brain is calling BS, or you're hearing the voice of someone in the past who saw you as your less good self. And this is where toxic people come into play, because toxic people introduce more moments in your life where you're feeling lesser than, where you're feeling undeserving, unlovable, unfunny, whatever it is that you normally at your best self feel good at. Toxic people make you feel as if whenever you're with them, that is not that, So now, when you are used to being around people at a high frequency who reflect your not so good self, they reflect your flaws, they quickly criticize you, they interrupt you, they diminish your ideas, then your brain, which is really a machine for predicting the environment, predicts that it's going to get more of that. So when you're at an event getting an accolade, if you have a history of trauma, especially relational trauma, you're going to remember that someone in your past groomed you. They were really sweet. They got you flowers. They got you chocolates. They gave you a bunch of attention right before they pulled the rug out from under you. If you have that trauma in your past, if you have that template of that pattern, whenever someone's complimenting you, you're going to be like, oh, they distracted me to set me up for something. This is flattery. What do they want from me? If you're used to people with hidden motives and ulterior motives and latent intentions, toxic people who aren't authentic. So you're used to double interpreting everything people say. And as such, when you're supposed to feel pure love, you feel love and manipulation. You feel love and guilt. You feel love and distrust, because the people that were around you modeling how to think about yourself when you're doing things, whether it's don't compliment him, it might go to his head, which is something that creates a big vacuum in achievement. Right. A lot of us, we achieve, and we were so conditioned to hear deafening silence after we achieved because our parents didn't want us to become arrogant. So they withheld affection, they withheld praise, they actually withheld validation, all fundamental nurturing things that we need developing as humans to develop a sense of integrity and of truth and of who we are. So when those old voices and old wounds exist within ourselves, when someone says certain things, when people look at us a certain way, even when we're in the process of winning and we feel a burst of confidence, we misidentify it as arrogance. And in that moment, we don't go into that zone. We don't fully receive the accolade. We filter it with ego narration. And then in that moment, we feel like a fraud. And walking away from the event, instead of feeling more powerful, we feel conflicted. We feel like we should have done this, that, and the other. We should have been more present because we were too busy beating ourselves up. That's the nature of imposter syndrome.
Man, you said a mouthful there, brother. Man, and so often people don't even recognize, like, I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was, to be honest with you, till I was probably about 38 years old, and I was like, well, how come every time I achieve something like with the easy button that sometimes I feel like it's on my life, it's like I just touch that button and it pops. It's like it came too easy. Yeah. What am I doing? And I used to put a lot of, I used to get so frustrated, like in relationships, for that exact reason, because my mom, she wasn't one to really celebrate you. You know what I'm saying? And then she was quick to criticize. But if you did anything good, they're like, okay, all right. You just do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But my thing is that if you're going to criticize when you do bad, you need to praise when you do good.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
I feel
real
like
quick,
it's
as a matter of fact, for every one criticism, your spirit, using that metaphor, needs 7 affirmations.
wow,
That's the ratio.
wow, wow. That is profound, brother. I mean, so why is it that so many people, I would even say in personal relationships, like as far as like your significant other, because I've struggled with this in marriages and relationships, where a lot of people, I think it's easy for most people to be with a normal person, somebody that goes to work, not saying anything about anybody that works, but what I'm saying is that, for instance, I'm a visionary. I like to go out and create so I don't curse on this on this side of man because my niece, she watches, but she's 18 years old. She's like, no, you
Yeah.
got cuss. I'm like, hey, you do what? But so I always find clever ways of saying stuff over here.
Yeah.
But when I started thinking about how do I want to raise my children? Do I want them to understand that it's okay to be brilliant? It's okay to be a bright person, because I remember the first time one of my kids came home and said that the kids were making fun of them because they were smart. I was like, the school I went to, I was a cool ass nerd. And anybody, there are a couple of people that went to school with me, whether it's college or high school, that are on this post, they'll tell like Felipe was smart, but he was cool. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't a bad thing to be smart.
Yeah.
Nowadays, these kids are like, they want to be seen as a gaming boy or
Yep.
or some bad person because being smart isn't cool. And I'm like, okay, grade school is what? That's 13 years of your life, elementary school, middle school, high school, you know, pre, so you're going to let the actions of a whole bunch of little broke kids
Mhm.
dictate the rest of your life. And I get peer pressure is real, but so many of our children, like, they don't, see, Valerie, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. She said, yes, smart and cool fella. Yeah, y'all. I told y'all. Love you, Val. I appreciate you. But um, yeah, it's like you got, we should be wanting our kids to feel like they want to do good, feel like they want to make good grades, feel like they want to be the best. Because, like I tell my kids, everybody on this planet puts their pants on the exact same way. Everybody takes a dump. Everybody pees. Everybody eats.
Yep.
Ain't nobody got a magic setup. Nobody on this earth can fly. As far as I know, I don't think Superman is real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't
Yep.
seen Batman come out the sky and save nobody. So that's that. So in my mind, of course, we got social, economic, and stuff, but a lot of that is mental. I mean, not
Yep.
saying it doesn't exist, but a lot of that stuff is mental.
Yep.
Once you get past all of that, the sky becomes the beginning. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so how do we get how do we stop projecting that onto our kids? And you just said something profound, that was it 6, 7 words of praise or affirmation?
Yep. Yep. You need 7 to 1. For every insult you say to someone, you need 7 affirmations with as much energy as the insult had.
Ooh, with
You
the
know,
ooh, boy, who's doing that?
you know, So if you're giving someone over the shoulder, quick, busy, glancing compliments, then notice the energy which you put in the vitriol. How toxic and biting and scathing are your insults to them.
Mm.
You know. And after an insult, ask yourself, how long does it take for you to actually give this person 7 equally positive statements?
Mm.
And how is the relationship and the person's sense of self as it relates to being around you doing? Now, a toxic person will be looking for those positive things from you. They will fish for compliments.
Mm.
They will set you up to apologize, and you'll feel like the whole time you're just playing this weird game of chess
Mm.
instead of just relating. You walk away feeling as if the person managed to either walk away the moral high ground, made you feel smaller, made you
Mm.
feel dependent, made you feel like you needed them
Mm.
because of their need to be needed
Mm.
instead of their willingness to be vulnerable to being loved.
Mm. Why do you think it's so difficult for why do you think it's so easy for people to criticize than it is to speak positively about people? Like why is that?
Well, it depends on how you grew up. If you grew up in a scarcity environment,
Mm.
most people who find themselves stuck in scarcity mode and surrounded by others of scarcity usually have low self-esteem
Mm.
because scarcity is a projection of low self-worth.
Mm.
So now people with low self-esteem, they self-regulate downwards. That means they look around for people to criticize so they could feel better. And then immediately after the person stops feeling bad, they stop feeling good. And so they need to criticize someone else. They're looking for that narcissistic supply. Who can
Mm.
need me? Who can lift me? Who can value me? Who will ignore my flaws? Who will enhance and validate this false image I'm putting up? This is the nature of
Mm.
narcissism. Okay. Now, on the other side of that, you want to be looking for people who value your energy, and when they're around you, they're pouring back into you as quickly as you're pouring into them.
Right.
This is ultimately the whole process.
Mm.
You know,
Why do you go ahead.
yeah. Until we do that, we will attract people who criticize us because we grew up in an environment where the criticism, bad attention was the only attention we got.
Mm.
And like I said, if you're the kind of person where when people are giving you compliments you distrust them, then you'll be on your guard and you'll be misinterpreting things they say later, seeing if the compliment was to juice you up to distract you, as opposed to if you can naturally receive a compliment as something that is true about you. It doesn't go to your head, it doesn't distract you, it just becomes part of the truth. It encourages you and gives you energy to keep moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
So those are the people that you attract based on your self-esteem. A person with high self-esteem, they self-enhance upwards. They look for people who are better than them, and
Absolutely.
they admire, they support, they ask
Right.
questions, and they grow with you instead of having that fixed mindset that leads to just ego threat and living in the drama triangle. So
So
hopefully I didn't over-explain that.
no, no, you never that, man. Everybody on this everybody listening, make sure you bring out your thesaurus and your dictionary when Brother Man is talking, because he might throw out some words that maybe haven't been used since
SATs.
so uh he'll start speaking, you know you'll think he's speaking Greek or something, but he is speaking English. uh but no, the brother's just brilliant, man. So that whole thing with narcissism,
Yeah.
um what I found is, like, you hear that word being thrown around a lot, right? Everybody is somebody, so and so narcissist, so and so, everybody's a narcissist. Like, it's just um and one of the things that I have come to find is that when you're dealing with somebody that has a negative self-image, maybe because they were big growing up, they're small now, something like that, but that person is still inside of them. They still, and they're constantly looking for people to constantly keep on telling them how good they look, how pretty they are, how handsome he is, how fine. But because inside they still feel like,
Yeah. They can't believe it.
right. And I also found that they're, because their egos are like literally right here. Like they're very shallow. So it's like as soon as you question it, like you question the smallest thing, they going from 0 to 100 just like that.
Yep.
Because you're breaking that, I guess that projection that they want you to have of them. They don't want you to question anything about them.
Nope. Nope.
And that brings about a certain level of volatility.
Yep.
Where when you break that, it like especially like if you leave or something like that, where they try to destroy everything around you because they're afraid of that mask coming off. Because I've been through that, where the person tries to defame or just try to destroy your image with everybody, but everybody like, man, I know you, dog. Like, man, okay, all right, whatever,
Yeah.
But it's a sad situation to see happen because that person is so fearful that you're going to out them that they're trying to destroy you so that you're discredited and you ain't even thinking because somebody that's ever really been in love with somebody, you ain't looking to, unless a person was just an evil person, they stabbed you or shot you, you ain't looking to destroy that person's reputation.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? You're like, hey, it just didn't work out. Like, hey,
And that's projection again, because they're thinking, they're afraid you're going to do the thing that they have an impulse to do.
Right.
That's the nature of narcissistic projection.
Yeah. And it's sad when you look at it and you start thinking about kids being raised in environments like that, because then because the children end up duplicating that same pattern, so. And one of the things that I noticed too is that you'll see a lot of parents try to triangulate their kids.
Yep.
Do you want to? Can we get into that for a second? Because I want to. So we end around 9:30. So for about 15 minutes, I want to go into this, and then for the last half an hour, I want us to get into relationships between men and women as it relates to toxic friends, the impact, and just how having the wrong circle or the wrong person, being with the wrong person, and how some people are actually addicted to toxic relationships.
Yep.
So, but for right now, if we can talk about triangulation a little bit, which you talked about offline some.
Yep. Okay. So triangulation, I refer to it as Cartman's drama triangle. That's how I was taught it. And there are three, and this is the three role positions that we go to automatically when we are triggered. And you can recognize when you're in those positions because you can see someone else has taken the other role, has forced you into the other role, into one of the roles. The three roles are the victim, the rescuer, and the villain. Okay. Now, you can ask yourself, which one am I in based off how you feel? If you feeling and seeing yourself stuck, victim, disempowered, resentful, and the other person is pushing something on you, pushing the objective on you, then you're in the victim position. Another way you could be in the victim position is if you're feeling that you're being suffocated by someone else's help, where they're making decisions for you. And anytime you try to make decisions outside of that, they're guilting you. Okay? Now, so then you're in the victim position. When a person is stuck in the victim position, it means that the other people they're interacting with don't believe they have the capacity for growth and change. They've triggered you, and now they're treating you like you're stuck in your past. So the two positions they go into, one position is the persecutor. This is the villain. They come in, they start criticizing you, they start beating you up, start telling you you're not such and such and whatever. Now, once they come into their position, once someone comes into position, they knock you into what's called that one down position, the victim position, the powerless position. Now, someone else is going to walk by, see you getting beaten up, looking powerless and helpless. They're going to go through and rescue you. This is the rescuer position. Now, the rescuer comes in, and now they're attacking the villain, okay? The person who was once beating you up. Now, all of a sudden, guess what? Everyone changes chairs because now the person that was the villain that was persecuting you, now they're the victim and someone else gets to come. Or you might turn around now and you want to take a different position and you're like, hey, don't talk to my mama like that. Suddenly your dad that you invited into the room to rescue you from your mom talking a certain way, or in another case, your dad that came in because your mom was so shocked at the tone you used, and now suddenly he's beating you up, and suddenly your mom is tripping like, don't beat him up so much. These are triangulation moves. They're moves that keep you subjugated instead of in the process developing into a higher self, because none of those three positions involve actually getting the thing done. These are all drama positions. You're going to go back and forth arguing, and all the energy that should have gone into in the moment doing something, the moment passes, the window of opportunity closes. So that's the triangulation as I understand it. Now, what's important to know is that after you grow up in triangulation and you leave, you develop what's called repetition compulsion. Now you're going to go find someone who wants to play the same game with you, because that's what you learned love was about. You're going to find a dude that, if a young lady might find a dude that gets into arguments with her, and then immediately she call her ex to come through.
Wow.
Or she might call her dad to come through when her man is acting up. Because her dad, he's used to playing the role of rescuer to her anyway. That's my little princess, etc. If he's been playing the role for boyfriends because the young lady learned this at home, and if dad is this is how triangulation gets complex. If dad is beating up on mom, dad is probably extra protective with daughter, because now he doesn't want any dudes dating his daughter, because he's assuming the next dude is going to beat up on his daughter.
He's projecting.
Yeah. So by the time she gets married, she's married to a dude who has gone through this terrible process of disempowerment by dad, where dad already has him in a contentious dynamic, So now this dude already knows every once in a while you got this dad that doesn't honor boundaries. He gonna come through every once in a while, and in their relationship, even when dad is not around, she gonna leverage it. She gonna do certain things she does right before she calls her daddy and he shows up.
Right.
Or she crying that cry she cried, or she's locked herself in the bathroom. She probably on the phone with her dad. These are all dances that we see, but until we realize that these are projections into our future of patterns we danced in our past. Arguments usually involve racing to the victim position. She gonna be hurt, and then because she's jumped to the victim position, you come in and you're like, oh, you're like, oh, she's playing the game again, because you've seen her play the game. You knew she used to play the game, and she told you how her mom and dad used to play the game. So you thought you was going to change the tendency for her to play the game with how much love you were going to give her. You, my friend, were a rescuer until you became the villain. Okay?
Right. A mouthful with that, brother.
So next time you turn around, now you trying to rescue, you're not rescuing well enough. She might go from victim position to villain position. You promised to marry me, honor me, etc., and you're not doing it good enough. She says terrible things to you. She gonna push some buttons from some stuff that you ain't heard since your mama got mad at you.
Yeah.
Certain things you wouldn't allow any dude to say to you. She gonna push those buttons. Meanwhile, you're in the victim position. You spend enough time in the victim position, she gonna push you past your limit. You're gonna say certain things, and next thing you know, you're the villain. She on the phone in the bathroom with dad again, or the kids are outside the door hearing mommy crying. And these are the dances.
So was
shift right. Okay, now I think my daughter's knocking on the door, and I'm gonna let her in because we've had sort of a chaotic day. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Okay, go ahead.
Come in. Hey.
Well, now we know everybody's at home right now.
Sweetie, so. I'm on a call. She just came by to tell me I'm the best. Yeah, he's
the best dad on the planet. Well, I'm sorry, but he's number 2. I'm number 1. Sorry.
All right. I'll take second best. I'll take second best.
But one of the things that I wanted to so it's interesting that you said that, because one of the things that I've also noticed that you will encounter when you're dealing with somebody that's triangulating or dealing with narcissism is that they'll romanticize the past. Yep. They'll tell you, they'll demonize the hell out of somebody, and then when you go, well, I see what you're talking about, then all of a sudden they'll flip the script and make it seem like the person wasn't that bad. Like, hold on. Yeah. You the one told me, you the one threw the warning signs up, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. And then all of a sudden, when I am like, damn, I see what you're saying. Now all of a sudden, like, no, why you attacking some? Hold on, wait, hey.
And we call that
Like,
splitting. Often
mm,
in splitting, a person with a person who's been through a certain amount of trauma has a limited capacity to see a person as both good and bad. So
mm,
they remember the person as all bad, and then they treat the person terribly and they devalue them. But the second you start talking badly about the person is absent, then they start listening to you, and suddenly they start deciding, hey, the person wasn't all that bad. Oh, you making them sound terrible. And then they decide that they now have to address the good aspects of the person. They flip over, they split. Now they can't remember the bad aspects of the person. So what you talking about? It don't matter that they just said it to you, because now they can't access that part of their representation of the person. That's the nature of dealing with a person who has had developmental and relational trauma.
is that not BIPOLAR? That's what that sounds like to me.
well,
It's like
well, no,
a
it's
bipolar
usually
mother.
they would call it a borderline personality or a borderline trait. But
Okay.
here's the thing: often the nature of these dances is we continue to do these dances until we wake up to the fact that we're still doing these dances, and
Mm,
that means that there is, if you Google narcissist borderline dance, you'll see that you have two people who have these wounds that spend their lives wounding each other
mm,
unless, instead of waking up, and they call it love. They go on this roller coaster. They go into this idealization, devaluation, honeymoon period, beating someone up, hiding it, telling them that the only reason I do this is because I'm afraid of losing you. All the noise, these
mm,
loops, you know, we do them because it's what we saw as the representation of love. We see love as fear, pain, guilt, shame, and wounds because that's how we were taught love. We
mm,
see love as fear of loss. We see love as jealousy. We see love as pettiness, as scarcity and competition
mm,
until we choose not to.
mm. That is profound, man. It is. The one thing I never understood is how people could be in competition with each other in relationships. Like I didn't get it, but then I started understanding that. So I got this thing now, so the future Mrs. Barganier, you're gonna need to know one thing. I am not interested in any relationship based on maintenance. It has to be about growth. If you want me to maintain who I am today, I ain't your guy because you're not the same person you were when you were 12, when you were 1 years old. You're not the same person at the age of 35 that you were when you were 25. So this idea of people maintaining who they are, yes, basic stuff like respect, me showing you affection and doing for you, yes. But so many people have this, they don't want you to grow. They want you to stay the same person in this little box without you actually evolving as a human being. And I really feel like we're here to evolve. I remember I was in a therapy session with a former significant other of mine, and the therapist ended up basically telling me that you did nothing wrong, and explaining that this person's the reptilian part of their brain was still in control, which is that fight or flight.
Yeah.
And this person was 30 something. So people think that because of age, you're mature. Nah, like hearing that opened my eyes up to wow, you can actually have grown adults 40, 50, 60 years old that still act like teenagers. And people don't understand that. And how can people how do people progress from that? So, and because I would think that somebody that is stuck in that, I guess, stage of development,
Yeah.
they're probably dealing with some trauma somewhere. I would assume
Yeah.
that's unresolved because they can't get past that fight or flight, part of their life, and they need that constant. And that's a very dramatic life because you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to resolve issues without it. Everything to you is a fight instead of
Yeah.
it's just somebody going, hey, look, I just want to talk to you. Like we ain't
Yeah.
mad, but
Yeah.
can we have a discussion about something, that, whatever. And,
Yeah.
dealing with that, how do how do people resolve those types of issues? And I mean, if you don't know that it's you, like, how do you even identify, that I'm stuck in, in the mindset of a 16-year-old at the age of 62? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, how do
Yeah.
you identify that? Or how do you
I
know? Better yet, how do you help a significant other? Because we're right, yeah, a significant other or somebody in your life that may be stuck in that, in a certain stage of development.
Yeah, the book I would recommend is it's called Attached, and the Science of Romance. It's a relationship book, but it's a relationship book for people who are in toxic relationships.
Mm,
Um, Now, one of the things to understand is that whenever we have something happen in our lives that scares us so much that we don't want to think about it ever again, whatever identity we were in when it happened gets shut down in fear, shame, and becomes unapproachable. What
mm,
that means is that anytime we find ourselves in a situation that reminds us of that situation, we go into that lizard brain, that amygdala, that fight, flight, freeze, faint.
mm-hmm,
We go into scripted behavior and we pull out of body. Now, what that means is we go into running a script in the present that we created in the past, but it's a rigid maladaptive script. If it's yelling, beating up someone or whatever, if it's going out on a drinking binge, if it's slamming doors, throwing stuff around the house, whatever script it is that we were taught was the way to handle certain things, to look bigger, to look more intimidating, to look more imposing, to
mm,
feel safe in that moment, we'll do that.
mm,
But ultimately, we want to observe how we're behaving in different contexts and then notice how we're feeling after the behavior. It's
right.
the behaviors that you feel ashamed of, guilty about, behaviors that you feel like you have to compensate for are the behaviors you want to look at and say to yourself, at what age did I learn that behavior? And at what age did that behavior serve me?
Mm,
And now that behavior was probably not even adaptive then, but it got you through a situation. If rage was what you needed to get you through being in an environment where your boundaries were constantly and just painfully violated, then you needed to be that explosive person that everyone knew that when you had a certain look, leave you alone. You needed that when you were trapped in that space. But
right.
now you're at an older stage where you don't want to push everyone away anymore, yet you find yourself compulsively, reactively exploding when people are trying to get close to you because it reminds you of prior ways that you were groomed in toxic relationships.
Mm,
Now, what happens is you want to ask yourself, what age do you feel you are in that moment? And you just say to yourself, how old is this part of me that's coming up right now?
mm,
Now, what happens then is once you'll hear yourself say, you know, that reminds me of the time my dad punched me in my chest and I was
mm,
9 and blah,
mm,
blah, blah. You were 9. So treat yourself like you would treat a loving a 9-year old you loved.
mm,
You know, give yourself a few moments, go for a walk, let yourself have a nap, get your favorite blanket. And we're grown, but we got to treat the wounded parts of us as if they are the age we were at when they were wounded. And if we find ourselves in love with someone who was wounded at a particular age, we have to realize when they're regressing, this is not the time to get aggressive and reactive because we feel like they're playing games with us. Yes, it feels manipulative, but this is all this person has access to in that moment. So either back up or figure out some way of helping them feel safe so that that young scared part of them which they are trapped in that moment due to the trauma can recede and heal. And over time, when you build trust, they can come to know that when you're approaching in that way, you're not grooming them, you're there for the long run, and you're looking for the part of them that exists on the other side of that emotion.
mm,
And that's how the intimacy develops in the relationship beyond the wounds, instead of
mm,
trauma bonding where two people get together, trigger each other all the time, ride the roller coaster and call it love and chaos.
mm. Man, you are dropping jewels of wisdom on us, man. That's it's this some heavy stuff, brother. I ain't bringing the alcohol, man.
That's the Hennessy talk.
Yeah. Hey, and that's my drink right there. Let me get one of these kids to bring some.
Right.
No, I don't have my kids mixing drinks, y'all. So
Not yet.
I gotta work for defects around here.
Right.
I don't have, so, but yeah, I mean, man, there is so much to talk about when it comes to toxic, like just a toxic, you know the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Anyway, when it comes to dealing with toxic people, I had heard stories of people needing drama or needing to be hit or needing to to be physically abused or physically fight you. When I got into my one and only relationship where that person needed that, I was like, what the Farfik Nugan is going on here? And the scary thing about it was the more I did not reciprocate, the worse the person got.
Yes, because they needed you to give them that drug.
Yeah, but man, it got to the point where the person tried to kill themselves.
Yeah.
Because I am a big dude, first of all. I'm 6'3", 200 and some pounds. 260 pounds, yeah, 260 pounds. So I'm a big dude. So normally when I'm in a relationship with somebody, I'm not seen as somebody that you're going to physically attack. I'm seen as like a protector, right?
Yeah.
Because I try to give off that air, like I don't know. Hitting a woman doesn't make any sense to me. Like that's like we're not supposed to be competing with each other. I'm supposed to be doing my part. You're supposed to be doing your part. Yep. And there's a reason why men are bigger than women, stronger than women. Like we're, if we feel like we got to hit each other, why are we together? I mean, like what are we doing?
Yeah.
But when I first experienced somebody, and to your point, that the whole time we've been talking, this person grew up seeing their mother be an abuser, their father being an abuser, drugs, all kind of stuff growing up. So they thought that was normal.
Yeah.
And most relationships prior to me had some form of abuse attached to them. So when they met me, it was like, wow, I wonder, what I can do. It was like they were trying to say, he think he don't hit nobody. Oh, I'm gonna say some stuff to him, and he gonna want to knock my block off. And they would go there, like they would say some stuff like, "Did you just say what the?" I mean, so it's like, and then at that point, you start to understand. Wow, I see how somebody may have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you took them to a point.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't push me there. I'll leave before I get anywhere near hitting a woman.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're talking to me like that, you're showing me that you have zero respect for me.
Yeah.
And I know you might not see it that way, because you grew up seeing that as love. So your perception is that, no, a man hitting me back, man, that means he loved me.
Yeah.
Trying to control me.
Yeah. Yeah. He loved me. So look what you made me do. Right. A lot of that scripted language. Yeah. And the thing about it is that, again, this is how we carry it forward. This is the repetition compulsion. The person, when you're interacting with someone or in an intimate situation with someone who needs that dynamic, because that's what love is for them, when you're not doing it, you're not showing them the right kind of attention. Some people will tell you, if you're not jealous, then it's because you don't think anyone else would want me. No, if I'm not jealous, it's because I've decided to choose someone I trust. And so you want to look at what the belief is behind the toxic behaviors. What is it that the person is trying? What need is the person trying to get met that either they believe that they are doomed to never have met, and so they immediately go to frustration, or what need are they trying to have met that they believe that they shouldn't have met, and as such they feel guilty after they haven't met. You may meet someone who after physical intimacy they go into a deep guilt script, and we don't expect that, especially as we're older now, because most of us are like, well, we've been married, this and that. But keep in mind that certain scripts that were put into people were put in before we really had complex decision making. So when they told you no sex outside of marriage back in the day, you got married, young, you stayed in the marriage, and now you're 40 whatever and you're divorced. You still have that old script that says no sex outside of marriage that you forgot was embedded there with guilt. And it don't matter. So now you're gonna be someone who may do it and then feel guilt. And then you enter that relationship, even if that relationship is working. Later on, this guilt rolls into the relationship and becomes part of the fire that lights the whole triangulation dance going. Because now someone feels guilty, so they need you not to know that they're feeling guilty inside because they had sex with you before marriage, and you're going to know it for the rest of their life. So they need the moral high ground. Yeah. So all these dances, they happen from the second you meet someone. We start this dance. We start this small count going back and forth. Who's one up? Who's one down? Who owes who? Who has the moral high ground? And as long as we're doing that, we're competing. We're living in an ego dance. We're not doing love. We're doing expectation.
Somebody posted in the Carla Franklin says,
Carla,
why does this happen so much between black men and women? Why the competition? I want to answer this real quick, and then I want you to go in because I got a thought myself. So much. It's sad. One partner has to reduce themselves. Having been in that situation, and I don't think it's really a black or white thing. I think it's more of what Dr. Manny went into earlier about scarcity. When you're dealing with somebody with a scarcity mindset, you're going to have that. And a lot of times, if you are a high functioning person, you try to, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but you try to bring somebody that is not somebody that has an abundant mindset, or somebody that isn't looking to achieve great things. You try to bring that person along, and they don't understand where your desire drives to want to be this, whatever it is that you're trying to be. So I think that's where that comes from. And unfortunately, in the African American community, in my opinion, because there is so much scarcity because of where we come from, that's where that comes from in our community, because most of us didn't grow up. We got Richard Jr. in the house. Man, we had to block this brother, but I'm just kidding. Just kidding, Richard. But hey, no gray sweatpants talk, Richard. But but yeah, so it's like when you're coming from, and that's a whole nother topic right there when you're talking about the black community. I mean, the impact of slavery, there's so many different things that I feel like the African American community in this country has so many different levels of people and thought, because there's just so much. You got people that are still that think that their whole life is controlled by the boogeyman.
Yeah.
They feel like the whole life is controlled by,
the paparazzi or the what's it, Illuminati?
Yeah, Illuminati. Like every time a black person, if I hit that one more time, every time a black person makes money, it's the Illuminati. I'm like, hold on. So Jeff Bezos got way more money than all of them. Is he Illuminati? Warren Buffett. Like, I ain't heard this. Yeah. But anytime, and it's like, where does that come from? It's like, why do people feel the need to try to attack, and I guess, and to Carla's point, I think in our community, and I'm about to let Dr. Manny talk. I know this is the Dr. Manny show today. I don't want to take all the thunder from my brother, but like I when it comes to stuff like this is like where I just zone out a little bit. But and in my opinion, we have so many different variables as it relates to our own upbringing, when our descendants were free from slavery, how they were free from slavery, what they did after slavery. Were they the Harriet Tubman slave, or were they the house slave? You know what I'm saying? Like, were they in the field? Like, I mean, you got to look at all of those dynamics, and then like in my family, I remember my grandmother telling us about sharecropping. Telling us, the city that I live in Metro Atlanta. Sorry, Atlanta, for those that live in Atlanta, in Metro Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, I live in the same city that my grandmother and her family got ran out of by the KKK. So I grew up hearing all these stories. So when I went to a predominantly white college, man, they were like, "What you doing?" I was like, man, people are people. Like I ain't scared of, like, and what, and I feel like that's a part of that. Once you expand your world, and you got to get with somebody that's like minded. But I'll let you, I'll let you chime in on this, Doctor. Man, I just had to say something about that. So.
Yeah, I think Felipe hit the nail on the head when he said it's a scarcity thing. Um, I think a good book that discusses some aspects of this is Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and it discusses how some people are raised to perceive value as existing outside of themselves, and as such, they have this low self-worth. And when most of us project the deepest parts of ourselves outward and assume that we've created value through this authenticity and this deep soul searching, when they go inwards for their truth, they feel as if poison comes out. And as such, they feel as if they need to put out the image that they perceive will give them more value and status. In our community in particular, when I was growing up, I had some frustration with the need to, over identify with, the whole thug life to be cool, because the ladies that I wanted to date, that's how they looked. I'm sorry, the media had affected me where I wanted to date what I saw in the video.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to get this money so I could date people like this. Okay, so once you start developing that mindset, you're modeling yourself after this hip hop culture. And what else is there? Well, I don't just want one partner, I want 8. And I want to treat them bad. I want to be able to have an attitude. I want to be able to borrow someone's car and ride it around campus and pick up other women. You see these things being done, and it's framed in such a playful, pleasant, normative way that you find yourself poisoning those that love you because that is what the culture tells you to do. Whether it's not complimenting them, because I remember before the whole big backside and a lot of the current hypersexuality that
Big
females
wop, y'all. He talking about the big old booty and the wop.
Yeah. Before these things became, honestly, they've always been fetishized in African American women, and they've always been made to feel all the things that, when made artificial in women outside of African American women, suddenly it looks good. Black women grew up having their lips made fun of all their lives, and suddenly you got people swelling up their lips, and now it's hot. Black women who grew up with body and identity and weight issues all their lives, suddenly folks are like, oh, it's good when somebody's thick. It's cool now, but when you grew up with that as part of your identity, then you're going to continue to attract people who continue to keep you in the past and make you feel fat, make you feel ugly, make you feel too loud every time you speak up. Whatever the stereotypes were we grew up with that allowed us to look at someone else outside of our race doing these things and say it's cool, but when our women do it, well, she acting like a black woman. We create a culture within which we reciprocally diminish each other instead of bringing each other up. Yeah. And I think it happens in the scarcity mindset. And unfortunately, often when we talk about being African American, we automatically go to the identities that have scarcity associated with them, That's my take on it.
Mm. So, got another question in the. This is Kenya Johnson, all the way from California. Going on, Kenya? She probably high right now. No, I'm just playing, Kenya. just playing, Kenya. I hope you're staying safe from the fire. So she says he mentioned, he being Dr. Manny, mentioned that two people start the relationship doing this dance of competition instead of starting the relationship with love. What are the indicators of love versus competition?
Well, love ultimately is, for me, it's value alignment. If you are, they say you have to be independent before you could be interdependent. If you perceive yourself as living in a scarcity based world, and usually that's an indication of someone with low self-esteem, because someone with high self-worth perceives the world as abundant, because every time you pour out from yourself, the universe will reciprocate. The world will reciprocate. I put in work, someone cuts a check. Now, you have to reframe me in the question, because I was in the metaphor and I lost my train of thought. What was the question again? And I'll get right back.
The question is,
yeah,
Miss Kenya.
Yeah.
South
How do
Central.
you know love versus how do you know love versus how do you know love versus competition? Yeah. Again, if you're on a shared model, what happens is, and this is a perfect example of it, because when she asked the question, I was looking to answer the question as truthfully as possible. I was able to return to the truth in the conversation. When you're in something that is love, we return to our truth. We return to the automatic acceptance. The love is unconditional, and as such, we're both vulnerable. When we're dealing with competition, we introduce the concept of deception. We introduce the need, even though both of us are in the same house, I may need to out-negotiate you in the budget to make my point so I can get the money I need. I may need to talk to you passive aggressive in order to get you to do some things that I don't believe you're ever going to do, so I'm already frustrated. With the love comes with a growth mindset, a shared value, a communication and alignment of those values. Love comes with true boundary setting. Love comes with integrity within each person and within the relationship. And then love allows for healthy competition, because love is not a context within which you will do the triangulation. Embedded in triangulation is diminishing a person so that they can feel like a victim. They can feel less capable, less powerful, less loving, and less deserving. We don't do that in love. In love, we separate the mistakes from the person. So we do the kind of feedback, they call it descriptive feedback instead of evaluative feedback. You don't say, what's wrong with you? You say, what happened there? And so when you and the person side by side are working on what happened there so that the person on the other side can be better, that growth, that space, that presence, that truth is what we ultimately call love. Whereas if you're bringing the person down, it's with the intention of, on the other side of that transaction, when the next competition shows up, that person being a bit diminished, that person feeling a little less worthy, a little less valuable, a little less capable, so that within the home, we're not focusing on what we can do as a dyad, the two of us synergistically. We're looking at, how can you know that I'm worth you sticking around, that if you left, you couldn't do better, that you ain't gonna go nowhere without me, that you better stay with me, that when I'm gone, you better take it from me, even though I'm violating your boundaries. None of these things are love. All these things are tactical war games, and as such, competition. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that answered the question. If she ain't high right now, if you are high, Kenya Johnson, this will be recorded, so you can download the podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube.
Enough for the class.
Just kidding. She gonna curse me out later on. It's all good. She in California. Stay away from the. If you happen to see Yogi Bear fighting the fires out there, stay away from him. Let him do his job. Can you keep on getting high, girl? But yeah, man. So she says healthy competition separate the mistake from the person. So speaking of the healthy competition, I absolutely love healthy competition in a relationship where we're pushing each other. Like I feel like that is extremely. I feel like that's probably what you would probably see a relationship with maybe a Beyonce and Jay-Z, two high functioning people, because those are actually the hard relationships to be in because you got two people that both need that support, you know, and at some point y'all got to do this give and take dance, where you come home depleted, she come home depleted. I've been in a relationship like that before, where we were both just high functioning, running, and it was hard, but it was a very rewarding relationship when it worked. When it didn't, not so much, but it was like when it did because we both realized what we needed, and we became each other's peace. You know what I'm saying? So um, anybody else got any questions out there? I'm looking through on here. We
I just
can.
want to say, when you use the word high functioning in a relationship, I want to say that the two variables that are with successful outcome in a relationship. Okay, can you guys hear me now? Better? Okay, okay. Uh, in a high functioning relationship, the two determinants of a successful relationship are self efficacy, which is a person's feeling like they can do what they say they're going to do, and um, expectancy, like basically the person expecting the relationship to work out. So
Okay.
basically, do you believe in yourself, and you believe in your partner? That's those are the two questions. Self-efficacy. Do you believe in yourself enough to do the thing? Expectancy. Do you believe in your partner enough to believe in the relationship? Those are
Mm,
the two variables. It's that simple.
mm. Man, we got into some serious stuff, man. Over here looking at the comments, challenge is different from competition, though competition implies zero sum.
Yep. Competition implies scarcity again. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
When we when you start, yeah, and I maybe I misspoke because it definitely wasn't a competition. It was more because I've been in relationships where I've had people tell me stuff like, you ought to slow down, let me catch up. I'm like, they just what? I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
they do that at?
yeah.
We're not doing that here. Like, why am I going to slow down so you can catch up? Like that doesn't make any sense. Why don't you maybe I can assist you with getting to where I am? How about that? But if I started 20 years ago and you started today, I mean, I'm sorry, there's a certain amount of effort you're gonna have to put in to, and I don't know how to stop. Every year in my life has to be a progression. So it's like when you're dealing with, a relationship where you both are not, and I get it. Like some people, they don't, they want to work a job and retire, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it seems like the people that are commenting are probably high functioning people where, you know, they'll be in a relationship with somebody. I guess that's what Carla was talking about. I believe Kenya may be alluding to that as well. That they're encountering people that don't necessarily like you hear a lot of women say stuff like, men are intimidated by me. And my response to that is that that's because you're accepting of the wrong kind of man.
Yeah.
A real man is not going to be intimidated by you. I don't care if he's a garbage man. It ain't going to matter who you are. He is not going to be intimidated because at the end of the day,
Nice and appreciative.
right, like, because at the end of the day, it's like if we're supposed to be in love, there is, and I agree with that. I probably need a new word to use instead of competition because it's not that we're competing against each other. It's more like we're pushing each other to be the best versions of ourselves, you know. And it's not like, oh, I made $100,000. You only made $2. Like it ain't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's more of a situation where you're, both pushing each other to become the better versions of, the what I call the epitome of yourself. I want to be the epitome of Felipe. When I leave this planet, I want to be like, man, that brother really didn't have nothing else to do but die. You know what I'm saying? Like, what else could he have done? Like, he did everything. Like, so at my funeral, like, man, this dude, what'd you say?
Live it to the limit.
Right. And I feel like, in a relationship, you got a relationship where you're both living what a maxed out life, and you just running, and going and living the life that's a life by design. Like, you will leave this planet depleted. Like, man, look, I don't want y'all crying or nothing. Don't cry at my funeral. We're gonna have a celebration. Play the highlight reel. How about that? Play the highlight reel of my life. But yeah, this has been a beautiful. I knew by bringing you on the show, man, that this was going to be a very intense but very eye-opening conversation. Man, and it's been real, man. If any of our guests want to reach out to you, how can they reach out? Like, how can they contact you? Email, social media, phone number. Hey, look, but I'm about to say something though. Hey, don't be sending no gray sweatpants, dog. But but look,
right? Hey.
Hey, we're gonna talk about this.
I promise you that. I can't promise that.
We'll talk about the slow mo one day with y'all, but
right.
That'll be on episode 100. When we'll bring them back, But so okay, so how can they reach out to you?
Well, I've got a week-long course on breathing because everything begins with breathing. They can go to asylumawaits.com, asylumawaits.com, and enjoy that 7-day course. It also has some of the hypnotic music that I've been producing for an upcoming album. If they sign up, they'll know when that comes out as well. And so that's the best way to reach me. If they want to email me, it's Dr. Manny, DRMANI at asylumawaits.com. Again, asylumawaits.com. And if they would like to reach out by email, my assistant will get back to them because I'm willing to offer to anyone who heard this message through your episode, let me know that you heard through Felipe, and I will offer you a gift session. Usually my sessions, and can I say prices on here?
Yeah, absolutely can.
Yeah, usually my single sessions are $1,000 a session. So what I'm offering you in a gift session is $1,000 value. Full session, just shoot me an email, Dr. Manny at asylumawaits.com, and we'll get you scheduled so you can see what your life can be like with the power of hypnosis.
Man, that is awesome, man. And I am a believer in Dr. Manny. I believed in it so much, I had to learn what he was doing. So, and it absolutely works. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, man. Hope you come back in the future and be a guest, man, so we can talk about some, we only scratched the surface, man. We ain't talk about a lot of things today. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, brother. Much love to you and your family, man. I appreciate you coming on to the show, in the midst of everything. And look, I'm about to get Dr. Manny because he didn't do it, y'all. Like, he the first guest on the business of your mind.
Business of your mind? What was I supposed to do?
And he ain't do it. So to end this episode, I'm gonna need Dr. Manny to show his ass and just give me the best business of your mind. And
business,
brother.
You ready for me?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get it. All right. Business of your mind. How I do?
Absolutely wonderful, y'all. Now, it was kind of weak, but we're going to go ahead. What y'all think? What y'all think in the comments now? Y'all think that was cool? Can we just get one more try?
All right.
I got to mess
up, boys. All right. I'm gonna hit you with your business of your mind. Is that better?
There we go. There we go. There we go. Man, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show, brother. I love you, man. You're my brother, man. When me and this brother hooked up in Vegas, y'all at what's oh no, we went in Vegas, weren't we? No, my bad. We ain't never been to Vegas. My bad. I was talking about the hangover, you know.
Retreat. That Bible retreat we was on.
I had a Bible retreat, yeah. So yeah. So basically we were making the Bible version of Hangover in Vegas. You know, so we went to all the chapels and said, look, y'all ain't known each other but one day. Why y'all over here eloping? What y'all doing? You know you're too drunk over there. You know, we were slapping drinks out of people's hand and all kind of stuff, man. We were going to the dispensaries and
true.
Man, this has been a wonderful episode. I love everybody. Yeah, Carla Franklin. We're no Vegas. What you? Ain't nobody in Vegas. We was no. I'm sorry. No, we were in Vegas. We were saving lives. We were saving lives in Vegas. Saving lives, Carla.
Bro said we were trying to convert people to dispensary.
Yeah, converting people. How you think all the people got inside of the asylum? Anyway,
bro, you don't want that strain. That's gonna keep you up all night.
Is there any you got any last things you want to say, Doc?
Nah, man, I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for this like uplifting conversation. As you know, today has been a sad day for my family, and spending this time with you has really uplifted me. Thank you.
Anytime, brother, and I hope to have you on again, man. I always enjoy talking to you, man, and it's been a beautiful. Okay, hold on, my niece just popped up on the show again, so let me go. Hey, how you doing, Ariel? How you doing? You know, I'm glad I ain't see you because I might have cussed a time or two during this episode. So we're gonna put a special PG version of this episode for you. You can't you can't watch the regular, and don't be Googling anything we talked about either, because there were some things we talked about on here that, you know, that you might not. We don't need you Googling. But yeah. So it has been a wonderful episode. We are going to sign off. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And Carla Franklin says love and hugs. She looks
love and hugs, Carla.
I'm just playing. She didn't say all that, but she did say love and hugs. She did say love and hugs.
Love you, Carla. No, Carla for like 20 something years now.
I appreciate y'all. And we are going to be going weekly starting next week. Next week, we have another phenomenal guest. Dr. Manny I think he might make an appearance. He ain't wearing a gray sweatpants if any of y'all, you know, think he going to have sweatpants on. But next week, we're going to have a phenomenal episode. We got a very special guest. I know a lot of people know me as the money man, helping people move money around. We're about to start getting into some of that content. But in order for you to move your money around, you got to have the right mind in order to even do it. Because if your mind ain't right, your money ain't gonna be right. Am I right, or can I get an amen? So, amen. I love you all. Until next time, we are out.